I want to know everything there is to know about you.
I'm going to introduce me.
You must have spotted her by now. She's always there.
Don't I deserve love?
Somebody has to like me best.
Hello, welcome to 2022, and we're back with more Don't Know Her. I'm Scott, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Michael. How you doing, Michael?
A friend. We don't want to be starting the year lying to everyone listening.
Well, you better clear that up.
But otherwise, I'm very good. Yeah,
We are cousins. We are not lovers, by the way, just for people
who
listening.
did someone think that?
No, I'm just nervous about your boyfriend being like, what kind of admission is this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, now's the time. Imagine finding out, listening to a podcast, trying to support your significant other,
Oh, God.
and you find out they're actually in another relationship. But no, we are friends. That is a fact. We are not lovers. That also is a fact. And we are here to kick off a few episodes leading up to the Oscars, where we're going to be talking about one-time Oscar nominees who we basically think deserve a whole lot more. And we're starting with somebody who I am so excited to talk about. She is, to me, she is like the definition of a movie star.
Yeah.
It is Angela Bassett.
Megawatts, Angela Bassett. There's no one like her. She is, Angela. I'm so excited. She's always someone who, when talking about doing the podcast with friends or anyone else, her name has come up a few times as someone who is iconic, and we all love her and we love to watch her. There is no one like her. But like many, seems to be underserved given just how powerful her screen presence can be. So a definite good entry for the pod.
Yeah, and it is wild. It's so wild that she hasn't had a bigger career. We will get into it. There are reasons you can assume of why she wasn't as big as, say, Julia Roberts or Sandra Bullock or those sorts of people, and why she didn't have those opportunities. But she's also someone that has given us so much, and it's been such a joy, mostly a joy, to rewatch mostly these films. It's also interesting because, as you say, there's no one else like her, and watching her movies, she definitely has been kind of cornered or boxed into this sort of intense, kind of perfect kind of authority figure. And that, I mean,
Yeah.
authority in terms of she can be in charge of the FBI or the CIA or whatever. She can be a mother or a wife, and she'd be just have all of her shit together.
Yeah.
And in all of the movies, I think we watched, she is, even if she's been quiet for a lot of the movie or comes in late, she is the one making sense. She is the one you want to be led by. So it is interesting that someone like Angela Bassett would be boxed into those sorts of roles. And she is so good at it. There is a reason why she's cast again and again in those roles. The strength that she has in her characters is so empowering to watch. I say as a cis white man, watching these movies, I'll go and be like, if Angela Bassett can do that, why the fuck can I not? I don't know what it is about her, but I just find it totally infectious.
It is.
And that is not lost on audiences. So it's no surprise then, lately, then she's being cast as the Queen in Black Panther, because who else would you ever call to be a queen other than Angela Bassett?
No, absolutely. Not when you can look that regal in that get-up. Why on earth would you go to anyone else? No. I refuse. But why is it, just before we'll kind of leap in and we'll have a flick through her career before we dive into these films. But what is it? You're talking about her being boxed in, and you reckon she's kind of been boxed in. Do you think that is just part of being a black woman in Hollywood and the kind of the parts that were available to her, or do you think there's more to it than that?
Well, I think from doing, reading about her career, knowing of doing research in terms of the industry at that time, and also listening to interviews with her, I think it's kind of a combination of a few different things. You know, she seems to be attracted to that sort of role first and
Okay.
foremost. Like that seems to be something she's interested in doing. Then she's done it so well, so you capitalize on what you know is working. But total racism, there is no doubt that plays a part in the sort of roles and the sort of doors that would be open to her. So obviously the role of Tina Turner, what a role, but that doesn't happen. People will just think of, the Winona Ryders or Emma Thompsons or whoever in the 90s was the flavor of that time. And you see it with lots of different great actors, particularly women, who, like, when you look at, say, Halle Berry's career, who has won an Oscar, is a bit like a huge name and has launched lots of movies, but there's just not the same doors open to her. Like, they have to fight much more to get very little in return. And they're not working with the like Scorsese's or the Spielbergs and all of this stuff. Like, well done on Steven Spielberg making West Side Story more woke in 2021. But like, that's a long time coming, that sort of work, And in a world where, and we'll talk about this film, someone like Spike Lee, the brilliant African American filmmaker, does a film like Malcolm X, which by anyone's standards should be the best film of one of the best films of all time, let alone of a year, and is like shut out in terms of the very white centric Hollywood system, the Oscars, all that. When you see a film like that shut out, apart from say like one or two nominations, there is a huge problem. Like, that is a symptom of a bigger thing within Hollywood. So someone like Angela Bassett, they had no idea what to do with her.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a long-winded way to say yes, like there is problems. There's problems.
Yeah, but and I think she knew it herself. She said, and again, we're maybe going on a tangent, but hopefully a good tangent. But she spoke after certainly doing Malcolm X, which was what,
2.
1992 was
Yeah.
Malcolm X. She said after getting to play Betty Shabazz in Malcolm X that she thought kind of that was it, and that everything from there was going to be on the downhill. She's had these great parts in what she'd done up until that point, and it was on the downhill. But Tina Turner was then to follow that the year after. So if anything, there was a spike. But again, I don't think she was entirely wrong, because she happened to get um, the defining film of her career thus far after that. But then since 1993, as we kind of look forward, yes, there's a lot of other memorable stuff that's going on, and stuff that we're going to get into. But sadly, I don't think really she was wrong. It wasn't on the downhill from there. There was a little bit of an uphill, perhaps, in terms of her spotlight moment, but it sadly wasn't what it should have been after that film in particular. It's insane, because I think at that moment in time, everyone surely had eyes on Angela. But before we tumble off too much, because obviously we have a lot to get into here, and we can do so as we talk about each of the films, let me just jump in and give a wee rundown as to Angela Bassett and her kind of beginnings in her career. So, Angela was born on August the 16th, 1958 in New York City, and was raised in Harlem for a bit, and then she spent a while with her aunt. I believe it was in North Carolina, and then her parents divorced, and she basically moved with her mother to St. Petersburg in Florida. And then it was during her time in Florida that she went to high school, and from there she was the first African American from her school to be admitted to the Honor Society. And at that point, her mother became very involved in encouraging Angela and her sister towards getting these good grades and finding themselves in college, basically, and furthering their educations. So from there, massive success. Angela went on to study African American studies at Yale, no less. And then after graduating from that degree, went on to study a master's also at Yale, but this time in drama. And that's where we see the beginnings of this all taking hold. One of Angela's first stage works came in August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 1984, and she also performed in other of Wilson's works, namely Joe Turner's Come and Gone in 1986. And then a good leap later, she worked alongside Lawrence Fishburne again, who we encountered as Ike Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, in Fences, then yes, in 2006. And then if we go back again to that early period of her acting career, so we're back to the 84, 85, it was around here that we saw her start to get work in television, in the likes of Search for Tomorrow, Double Take, and FX. And then also kind of leaping a bit forward, the film career takes a wee bit longer, with her first film role in the Arnold Schwarzenegger classic Kindergarten Cop, where she plays a stewardess. But it was not long after this that things took hold even more, and she played in John Singleton's Boys in the Hood in 91 as Reva, who was the mother of the central character played by Cuba Gooding Jr. But of course, I'd be remiss as a big fan not to mention that she popped up in a wonderful bit part in John Sayles' 1992 film Passion Fish, which we spoke about when we were talking about Alfred Woodard on the podcast, before moving on to other turns in Malcolm X in 1992 as Betty Shabazz, as I mentioned, then of course as the iconic Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, which is what earned her one and only Oscar nomination for Best Actress in a Leading Role. 1995 actually comes with some other of her familiar work all coming in that year. So we have Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days, we have Waiting to Exhale, which was directed by Forrest Whitaker, and we also have Vampire in Brooklyn, which was directed by Wes Craven and starring alongside Eddie Murphy. 1997 then brings us Robert Zemeckis' Contact. In 1998, we see her as the titular Stella in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I'd say otherwise, Angela may be known from her works on the big screen in the likes of Music of the Heart, alongside Meryl Streep, Olympus in London Has Fallen. Again, we see there's a bit of an action trend, Mission Impossible Fallout we see her in, and kind of in these similar type roles. Teams up again with Spike Lee for Chirac. And then we get what is probably iconic to many film viewers now. We have Black Panther, and then the Avengers films as the kind of royal mother queen, Ramonda. She has also done some voice work, which of course she should because she has a fabulous voice. And we see that in the likes of Pixar's Soul, and then the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee quite recently as well. So Angela is, of course, I would say as iconic on TV as she is in film. She's been nominated for 6 Emmy Awards, most notably perhaps if we go back to 2002. We see her as Rosa Parks in The Rosa Parks Story. And then in the likes of American Horror Story, I reckon somewhere where she will be familiar to a lot of TV viewers, and very interestingly directed a couple of episodes of American Horror Story. Featuring in, what was it, 2 series did she do of American Horror Story? She was
You're
in...
asking the
wrong person. I mean, I dropped off after the second series, but I think she's in the third. Coven she starts, and then I believe she's in one after that. And then Master of None as well. She was in a very iconic episode of that series. And
Thanksgiving. It was all about Thanksgiving. It was great.
Good. I've never watched it, but I will take your word. Maybe I'll check it out. And then known to many, I'm sure, as well for her work in 911, and as a recurring part in BoJack Horseman as well, which is a terrific show. So lots of exciting stuff going on, but for someone as wonderful as she, I just think there should be more post 93, certainly, and especially on the big screen.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess let's start with the film, which in any interview is she's connected with, which is What's Love Got to Do with It, which is, as you say, 93. She's nominated for an Oscar. She's playing Tina Turner, and the film is about herself, Tina, and Ike Turner, how they meet, their relationship until Tina leaves him. Just a note, because as we usually do, we have clips, and some of the clips might be are quite upsetting, and people might find particularly upsetting. But this is a film I only watched during the initial lockdown. As you reminded me, we set ourselves a goal of watching all of the nominated performances of that year of the 66th Academy Awards, so Holly Hunter in The Piano, Stockard Channing in 6 Degrees of Separation, Emma Thompson in Remains of the Day, Deborah Winger in Snore, Shadowlands.
They were actually calling it Snore. Like, well, I think it was
Well,
something else.
in my mind, it's called Snore, and Angela Bassett in What's Love Got to Do with It. And I'd never seen it before, and I found it so heavy. And coming back to it, I was really dreading rewatching it for this, but I'm so glad I did. I found it so. So domestic abuse is something I don't think is ever pleasant to watch on screen.
No.
And this is a pretty horrific story to be told, and the way that it's built up, and you meet Tina Turner as this young, excitable, kind of not lost, but she's looking for some kind of purpose, and she has this gift, and Ike discovers it, and they fall in love. They're together, and there are ups and there are terrible downs.
You know how much money I owe Sue Records? What you mean, old Sue Records? Much as we were? They always giving you stacks of cash whenever we do a show. I know I don't spend it. Oh, no? But what about what all them wigs and wardrobe and whatnot you got in the back there, huh? What about the way you got this place decked out, huh? All this furniture, that fish tank, the sofas, that fountain and shit. That shit costs money, Anime. I got to pay the girls and I got to pay the band. And on top of that, I'm trying to build us a studio. You know you want the studio. And I'd have it by now. You would sing the songs the way I tell you to sing them, Anime. God damn.
Within the film, we see a lot of beating, there's a rape, a lot of gaslighting, so much. Like she has no control. Like you see this woman who is so successful, like as successful as you could ever imagine, and she's unable to escape this man when she wants to. And she can't get help from like her mother. Like such an upsetting scene where she calls her mother.
I need to ask you a huge favor. Yeah, well, I need to come stay with you.
Mom,
huh?
Why you working?
Shh, come in, hurry. Yeah, well, what?
Can we have some breakfast?
Over there. When did you talk to him?
Mom, where's Dad?
When he what? I bought you a house? Jesus.
Towards the end of the film, and this is why Angela is so good at this, you see this young girl who we meet at the start grow into a woman, and grow into a powerful woman who finds her agency. And in the film, we see her, and she becomes a Buddhist, and she uses that and those teachings to really find her feet. That sounds like such a boring way to but that essentially is, because it is a by numbers sort of biopic in essence, this film. So you see her, she's getting the strength, and towards the end she stands up to Ike. There's quite like violent scenes between them where she attacks him back, until she walks away, and she has this wonderfully powerful moment where she goes to another hotel and basically begs them for a room.
I'm Tina Turner. My husband and I just had a fight. I'm supposed to open at the Academy tonight. I have 36 cents and a mobile card. But if you would give me a room, I swear I will pay you back.
You know that because of what Angela Bassett's doing, that Tina Turner will be okay from this point.
Yeah. It's a very powerful film. It is, like you say, it sort of is that by the numbers type biopic, and it because it charts a lot of time, and certainly a lot in their relationship, and it's coming back to kind of similar dynamics in their relationship quite specifically. But it is incredibly powerful. They tackle it very head on, which I think is admirable, and I think that's why this biopic in particular has longevity, and why people will come back to Angela's performance time and time again, because what she's doing is incredible. I think Tina Turner is someone who's probably really hard to capture. She was, I guess started off probably as a soul type singer, but moved towards being someone who would now be considered the queen of rock and roll. And she has an energy unlike anyone else. I think anyone familiar with Tina Turner, an image will come into their head of a certain hairstyle, a certain way of moving, a physicality, and it's quite animalistic. It's intense, but it's very fun and exciting. And I really, 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 really do not know that anybody else could have pulled this off. I really, really believe that. I don't think anyone else could have done this. And that's why this performance is really exciting and elevates what may otherwise have been, as you say, a by the numbers biopic into something absolutely worth visiting. It is genius casting. I mean, she was there and she was doing prolific work. She was in prolific films leading up to this. But this is absolutely right. And she still auditioned for this. She auditioned for it like everyone else. And what I'll say as well, and you can see this in other biopics about rock stars, singers, whoever. I'll take Bohemian Rhapsody as an example. You have Rami Malek lip syncing. He doesn't sing in that. And it is, to me, it doesn't work. It doesn't really fit. And then you've got worse examples of that. Viola Davis and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, actually going back to that quite recently, really, for me, it doesn't gel, and it's off-putting and it throws me out the film. Angela absolutely owns this. Even though she's lip-syncing, she's holding her body in the right way. She's projecting as if she's Tina Turner, and it's magic. It's magic that is happening. So I'm bowled over by her work in this film, in this performance. I think as biopic work, it is second to none.
And one of the joys and why biopics win Oscars and stuff like this is it's centered around like a performance and a performer, and you see them transform into someone you know, but also transform through the ages a lot of the time in front of your eyes. So to watch, like, this is really the only time this has happened, sadly, with Angela's career. Like, they've built a whole story around her one portrayal of a character. But the scenes where Ike is like bringing out this sort of energy, I think he uses the word raw quite often with her, and you can see it, and you can see Angela and Tina, like as Tina, kind of morphing into what we know of Tina Turner. There's this amazing scene which I put like, it's the same sort of energy of in A Star Is Born when Bradley Cooper brings Lady Gaga out, of Angela Bassett is tired. She's had her children. She's been working like a what is the saying, like a workhorse. I don't know. He literally is working her to exhaustion, and he's like, get on that stage. That sequence where she stands on stage, and now this is all lip syncing. She is on stage and she finds the energy to perform as Tina Turner that we know and love, and all of the physicality is spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easily the best role she's had, and it's just such a shame when you think of like she can still do anything, but back then everyone should have been like flocking to her. She talks about after this being released and received, the phone not ringing, and you think, how is that possible?
Wild.
And there, I don't have any hard facts on this, but when Emma Thompson was in whatever Remains of the Day or Howard's End would have been her big film, her phone would have been ringing off the hook.
Sure.
Now, what is the why? And it's to do with race, and you can put Emma Thompson in anything. And to be honest, Emma Thompson has done anything. Maybe
we love you.
But maybe Emma. That's a bad example. I love Emma too, but Junior, Emma's
sure.
career. Anyway, regardless that. What I'm getting at is it is wild that people like they're equally talented. Angela Bassett would never have had those opportunities, and this film, highly recommend. It's on Disney Plus. It is a tough watch, but it is a satisfying. It's just satisfying to watch this. And I know what you're saying, like Bohemian Rhapsody, and anyone that loves a biopic, this is a good example of it. As for all the people that hate Bohemian Rhapsody, I have a soft spot but knowing that, like, all the crap that went behind it and why it's a bad movie in terms of a craftsmanship, and does that make sense?
Yeah.
I there's something about it that I still find appealing. And if you were to compare like those sorts of performances, Rami Malek is more kind of on the caricature side
Yeah.
than say Angela Bassett is doing something which is much more encompassing it in a natural
Yeah.
way, which is totally appropriate for both of them. They should have been that way, but it's totally appropriate for this. If you saw a caricature of Tina Turner being, abused, like that would have the tone of that film would have been just totally wrong. So it all just matches very, very well.
Yes.
So I would watch it. Yeah. I
It's
also really want to see Tina Turner live now because after watching it, I'm like, oh my
uh,
God, is she still touring? What does she
I
do
think
after this?
she's put a bow on that one, unfortunately. But no, you're what you say is right. It's not an impersonation at all. She matches up and she delivers it perfectly. She holds herself in the right way. She has the poise, she has the fire in her eyes, and all of these things. But it's not an impersonation. It is a performance, and a representation of Tina, and one which does incredible justice to an incredible woman with an incredible legacy. But it's cooler as well in that it has dirt under its fingernails, I would say. I think it's an edgier biopic in many ways because it doesn't shy away from things. It's braver than biopics we might see of our rock stars now, or certainly what we perhaps have seen in the past few years.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good point because nowadays, us film buffs, if we see, say, Renee Zellweger cast as Judy Garland in a biopic, it's like, well, that is an Oscar play. Like this film is, designed to be an Oscar competitor.
Mm.
Back in the early 90s, that was not the case in the same way. Like it wasn't like, oh my God, here's a Tina Turner, Ike Turner film. This is just for the Oscars. This wasn't for the Oscars in that way. It was had much more. I guess it has a wider kind of intent, and not to say anything against. As I think I think Renée Zellweger is good in Judy. I don't think Judy's good. Love Judy Garland. That's all clear now. But what's love got to do with it came at a very different time. To kind of like it's kind of absurd how we've just got so many now, these kind of musical biopic sort of films like Rocket Man, Bohemian Rhapsody, Judy. We got that David Bowie one, which didn't do well, but we've had so many. So yeah, and one thing I will say about this film, when you look at some of the other films in her filmography, is that it was probably aimed at a wider audience, or there's like when we look at the films before, and this is why I think the whole pigeonholing thing might have happened with sort of her characters, is like she was making films that interested her, which included working with African American filmmakers, John Singleton with Boys in the Hood, Spike Lee, Forrest Whitaker, which is the film that comes after Waiting to Exhale. And the audiences for those films, I mean, obviously everybody can watch them, whatever, but the producer would sit there and think that's an African American aimed story. We can talk Malcolm X. Like when you look into the behind the scenes of that, like the producer's not giving Spike Lee enough money to make the film based on that alone, which is wild. Cue all these amazing, Janet Jackson, Oprah, and all these people coming to support the movie financially. But that's the sort of industry it was. So Angela Bassett kind of knew. I don't know. She just seems to not give a fuck. Do you know? In terms of
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to make. I don't know what else. I don't know what else. And this is the thing also, because maybe this is like a circular thing. It's like I'm saying this in a kind of empowering that narrative, but maybe she wasn't invited to partake in any other part. I guess what I'm saying, the success of What's Love Got to Do with It, it's as if like producers harnessed like what she represented in that, like a strong black woman, and put that in lots of their films. And I guess all you have to do is look at like 95, where the direct impact of Tina Turner and what they've got to do it would have been seen. So you've got like Strange Days. I don't know who else you could have cast in a role like that, and Waiting to Exhale. Exhale, even. Exhale?
Exhale.
Exhale. Am I saying Excel? Waiting to Exhale is...
It's about data entry. She's very good.
Oh my god. But like Strange Days is like what a part. Like when, like, you know, I'm here complaining, saying there's not enough great parts for women, particularly like anyone that's non-white. And then Strange Days is actually a properly meaty role that you would never suspect. You would never expect. You know, I mean, I guess you expect, like in The Matrix, you've Carrie-Anne Moss, or I just can't think of a similar character to the part she plays in Strange Days.
No, it's an indelible performance. And I think that comes quite naturally to Angela. I think she's an indelible performer. And when we see her on screen, we remember her. She has impact every single time. But Strange Days is a very, very interesting part, and unlike anything we've really seen otherwise, in a film which is very unique. Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days, which... quite a complicated one to try and explain, but basically it is about this, it's kind of a sci-fi fantasy type, and we follow this ex-cop who's now in the business of kind of dealing in these kind of disc versions of memories, and you have everyone kind of go around with these contraptions fitted to them, and they can illegally record basically their own memories, what they're seeing, what they're feeling. And then that can be viewed by others. And at this point in time, which was at this, like, consider the future, but it's the turn of the past millennium, is kind of like an addiction. It's a drug. People's approach to it and the voyeurism of their actions. It is something seedy and something you should not be involved in, and it's dangerous and it can get you in trouble. But it kind of follows this man, played by Ralph Fiennes, in the lead as this ex-cop now turned memory dealer, as he gets embroiled.
Well, I think nowadays, like, a hipster version of that is like a digital, like me, basically, a digital producer, digital maker sort of thing. He's like, yeah, it's very funny.
He's just ahead of the curve. He's just doing his thing back in 1995. And then, he gets embroiled in some crimes which he then bears witness to by coming across discs and files of these things. And Angela Bassett basically plays one of his, I guess, best friends is how she's introduced to us. Closest accomplices. She is she looks like she's a taxi driver, but it's like an armored vehicle because we're in this dangerous future. So
she's a limo driver.
She's a limo driver.
Yeah, exactly. She's like this she's a bodyguard limo driver.
Yeah.
Like fierce person that knows well. She wants Ralph Fiennes. She tells him so often, like, I don't want anything to do with that. Get out of my car. And yet at the same time is also kind of not removing herself from the situation. And that's just the way it's written. Yeah. They need them to be together because, I mean, and this is the bit that really threw me in this film, which is wild anyway. The thing that Ralph Fiennes sees is police brutality. So they kill these two black men who are totally innocent. The police do. And it becomes this thing about, like, what do we do? What do we do about this? Like, there's a lot of conversations which are so, well, sadly, they're still highly resonate today. But when the film was being made, like the O.J. Simpson case was happening. So it's informed a lot about what's happening in the 90s, and now it resonates because of what's happening now. And so her character is really there as a moral compass, again, like with this authority, to be like, no, Rafe, this is not simply you dealing and making money. Like, this is to do with a larger scope.
This tape is a lightning bolt from God. It's worth more than you, more than me, and more than faith. You understand? It can change things that need changing before we all go off the end of the road. And you do not have the right to use it for currency.
well, we haven't even got into the whole like gangster, because it's a film noir sort of thing too. This whole gangster storyline where there's like Juliette Lewis and like her like questionable pals or whatever, and it's kind of overly complicated, but I found it hypnotizing, and because of the like social kind of consciousness that it's discussing, I now I've watched it twice. I rewatched it for this. I found it. I was just like hooked. I was hooked to it and thought this could get wilder and wilder, and it does get pretty wild and pretty violent, I should say.
Yeah,
Also,
very, very violent. Definitely worth flagging. Very, quite trickily violent.
yeah, and there's a lot of things that probably have aged also, but it's still enjoyable, and it's actually really surprising to me that it hasn't some kind of cult following, because we should say it was a massive flop.
Yeah.
It like derailed Catherine Bigelow's career kind of until like The Hurt Locker. I know she didn't. I can't think of the other film now. What was the one with Harrison Ford on a boat, on a submarine?
The Widowmaker. And then this one they spent a lot of money on it. James Cameron co-wrote it. Didn't derail him, because 2 years later, he makes the biggest film of all time. But poor Catherine is left in a kind of difficult position after this film comes out. I thought it was brilliant. I hadn't watched it before. I watched it for the first time. Exactly as you describe, I don't want to retread what you've said. I found it really hypnotic. It's so exciting. It's very kinetic and wild. And I think Angela's maybe drawn to these films which can be a bit wilder and grimier. It's very grimy. But her in this she is built in a way which you are not used to seeing of a female film star. It is very impressive, and it just adds to the strength and fight of this character. She's so sharply dressed. She's just very cool. She's interesting. It's very, very memorable. Even if the character, I think, could have been fleshed out a little bit more for her. It's so interesting. It's such an interesting film because it was so topical then. It's just as topical now. And you're right. Why are not more people talking about the film? But not only that, why is this film not available in, I guess, the United Kingdom or Ireland? You cannot find this film except to go into the depths of the internet, which is almost, I think, what the film wants. So it's,
well, that's what I was going to say. I want Ralph Fiennes to be going out, like driving around, open his boot, and put some head contraption on you, and then you have to watch the movie that way. And then Angela Bassett drives you around in a limousine, and Juliette Lewis shouts at you in a performance which is either so bad it's good, or well, not even bad, so like out there that it's good, or it's actually just bad. I found it all like overwhelming in the best sense. So anyone that like likes their sci-fi films like ambitious and I don't know, going for broke, because there are like so I think like we're being very kind to it. There are things like, for instance, there is a unnecessary romance between Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett that really doesn't need to be a thing, and things like that. But overall, enjoy it.
I'm going to disagree. I don't think we're being unnecessarily kind. I think this is a very special film, and there are things which have either aged badly or don't quite work. But I think on the whole, I think you should seek out this film. I think it's a really, really interesting and exciting ride, kind of pre-Matrix type energy. I think it's great. I think some of the moments of violence, which is worth flagging because the perspective of the film, it puts you on this perspective of, in some cases, the victim, in cases in this film, the victim of rape, and puts you in quite a really uncomfortable position. So it's definitely worth flagging that if that's something that you don't want to see, do not seek out this film, because it is very, you are thrust into something incredibly uncomfortable and violent. I would say beyond that, though, I was just fascinated by it. And where it is messy, because I guess there is things about it which are messy, I thought it only heightens the tone of the film and what it sort of is and how it exists.
But really wild to me is Strange Days coming out the same year as Waiting to Exhale.
Yes.
I can't say it. Exhale.
You said it right, yeah.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Which was a huge hit, like a huge hit. Kind of at the time, you wouldn't have got many movies with women talking openly about sex and relationships, let alone like 4 African American women talking about it. And you have like Whitney Houston and Angela Bassett being the big like headliners, but there's 4 friends, all have their own distinct characters. They introduce you to their what would you say, like their conflict, which is kind of all to do with men and relationships at the very start.
Yes.
But each of them, they're just waiting to have that moment of, I guess, like contentment or like peace where you can exhale and just enjoy yourself. It is also like an ultra kind of, it's a sort of movie. They're also glamorous. They're all having like really such a lovely time. So it's escapist as well. Like there's nothing really a conflict, even at the start. So Angela Bassett, she is left by her husband.
You can have the house and you know I'll take care of my kids.
You wait a minute. I give you 11 fucking years of my life and you're telling me that you're leaving me for a white woman?
Would it be better if she were black?
No, it'd be better if you were black.
The way she delivers the line is it is something to behold. Very, very.
She has so many great moments.
So many great singers and lines in this film.
And then, yeah, like when she like kind of picks herself off the floor a few days later and the kids go to school, she like tears his shit apart and blows up his car.
Yeah, and that is, oh god, the images, even if you just go and look at the image of Angela Bassett walking away from a burning car, wonderful.
And it's really, really fun. It's just such a fun movie to watch. I will say, like, for Angela in particular, once that happens, her character goes on a journey and everything, but none of it is as exciting as the films that have followed in its footsteps, let's say. Mm-hmm. So this like opened the door for this sort of storytelling, like basically women being able to openly talk about their thoughts about relationships and men. And I find it enjoyable, but you know, I'm not going to be rushing to rewatch it again. As much as I also love Loretta Devine, who plays this woman who basically just wants to have sex, and Whitney Houston, who is. She like turns up at a table and in her voice, or you hear her internal monologue, and she's like,
"Hell yeah, I'm single and desperate and have no morals. And as soon as one of you turns your back, I'm going to flirt my butt off and then take your man."
they're all fun, but I don't know.
It is fun. I do think it deserves the credit of presenting men as the lesser species, especially at the start. It sort of then drifts more towards familiar terrain of them finding individuals who work within their lives. But the beginning, especially in relation to sex and the act of sex, the men are presented as really crap, and I did enjoy that. I liked watching the beginning of these men just not comparing to these fantastic women who we are presented with. Because Whitney is fabulous in this. Angela, it looks as good as she's ever looked. Loretta Devine, amazing. They're all so good.
Yeah, it's unbelievable and this is the thing. And I watched this great interview Oprah does with the cast, and you're like, how can women like this struggle with like finding men and all this, like, and you know, you think like, if you're that beautiful and that gorgeous and that successful, but then you have them having a great old time with Oprah telling her why this is happening, and all these, you know, women in the audience also sharing it, and it just feels like a real like special sort of moment. And I think that must have been so rare in the 90s. I can't think of, like, you know what, I was thinking like, oh, First Wives Club would have been around that time too. I feel like that has a campness to it, that Waiting to Exhale is just so openly about women, and it's not about like these famous people being themselves. Like Goldie Hawn, Diane Keating, and Bette Midler are playing versions of themselves having a great old time and being silly and whatever. But Waiting to Exhale has a real genuine search for like a soulmate or like this need, which is really beautiful and tender. Yeah, so I do really enjoy it. And also to flag, seeing as we've like flagged something in each of the movies, there is a storyline where one of the men, or the ex-husband of one of the main characters, comes out, and his son in the story uses the F word in a really unnecessary way. And I mean, I don't know. Everyone has different opinions on this, but I think that's totally inappropriate. He says it twice, and he like defends himself the second time he says it, and I just find that not okay for any movie. I don't care when it was made. So I'm just flagging that for anyone that would not like to hear that word.
Yes, good flag. Loretta does have him in check to an extent, though. But yes, you're right. It's a good flag. Be aware the horrible word is used.
But like, so Waiting to Exhale may not be her greatest film. Like, is there like what has been your favorite from the ones that you've watched for this?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Because I think each offers something very, very different. I think a film I'd never watched because I found it incredibly daunting, a prospect, but found it to be the opposite, and actually don't understand why it's not even more celebrated than it already is Malcolm X.
Music of the Heart.
Is Music of the Heart, Meryl Streep as the violin teacher. Amazing, life-changing, world-changing.
White savior movie alert. Sorry, of course I'm only joking.
Malcolm X being the real answer to that. Spike Lee's Malcolm X. Spike Lee is always an incredibly impressive and exciting filmmaker. But I don't know, going into a 3.5 hour biopic, I was a bit like, ooh. I mean, hey, I'm really interested in what this film's going to say, and it's Spike, so it's going to be interesting. And Denzel Washington playing Malcolm X, of course, this is going to be worth my time. But it's a long sit. Is it going to feel like a long sit? It maybe, but not in the way of it dragging or anything like that. It doesn't drag at all. It's actually incredibly kinetic and in the way that Spike Lee cinema is, and kind of jumping from point to point in a way which is really masterfully constructed. I think what it chooses to cover is very on point. Denzel is as good as you can possibly be as well. To go back to what I said about Angela earlier and what's that got to do with it, as good as you could be in a biopic. This is incredible work. Yeah, I was blown away by it. I think it's amazing. Everyone should be watching it, and I know it's prolific, but not as much as it should be. I could have just skipped this film and never seen it.
That's funny you say that. I feel like, yeah, like it is. It's not that it's a hidden movie or anything, but it's certainly not one that I see discussed. If you're talking about Spike Lee, people usually will say "Do the Right Thing," and that makes sense. Like, and that, but this is up there. Like, this is as good as he's ever been. I think. For all the reasons you say, like those hours, that time flew by. Like I was kind of going to watch it as if it was like a HBO drama, and in parts, but instead I didn't.
Make a sandwich.
Exactly, but I was hooked. It's this kind of like political, almost like a poem or something. As if like it's the way it's constructed is so gorgeously crafted, and you're just kind of submersed in this I don't know even how to describe it, but it was glorious. And you like the education system here in Ireland would not include talking about someone like Malcolm X. So my knowledge of Malcolm X is kind of cherry picked or whatever from films and bits and bobs from my culture and experience. But God, I learned so much from this movie. But it's like from where he started through to like how his belief system and like how like basically the Malcolm X we've come to know came to be is fascinating to watch. There's this sequence in when he's in prison and he meets, this man, this character, which actually is a combination of a few different people in real life into one character. And this person gives him a speech about, in reaction to, the African American guys in the prison are celebrating, and forgive me for not understanding sport or baseball, but some baseball player, African American, doing well. And his reaction to that is basically like,
white man throw us a bone and we're supposed to forget 400 years of oppression.
Yeah, but a Negro playing in the big leagues, that's something, ain't it?
I told you to go behind the words and dig out the truth. They let us sing and dance and smile. And then they let one so-called Negro into the majors. That doesn't cancel out the greatest crime in history. When that grafted, blue-eyed devil locked us in chains, 100 million of us broke up our families, tortured us, cut us off from our language, our religion, our history.
And this speech, which, to be honest, it could have been 1 minute or it could have been 20 minutes. It's like this beautiful thing. And the camera, as he's speaking to Denzel Washington, the camera pans across the faces of all the people in this scene, all the African-American men. And you're just like, this is as powerful a statement and as you can get. And this is what cinema and art in general should be used for. And then when you hearing that speech about like having an awareness of society and culture and how it's operating and why you think because they give you one bone that's amazing, to then see a film like Malcolm X not be celebrated by basically white society, it's like, well, this is exactly the shit we're talking about. Like, giving them the bone is giving, Denzel Washington a nomination for Best Actor, but to ignore the film as a whole is mad. Like, I know it's mad that Do the Right Thing wasn't nominated for Best Picture when the year Driving Miss Daisy wins, which anyway, but Malcolm X not being nominated too, when it's it's the sort of movie they absolutely love, and you can tell if Steven Spielberg's name was on it, there's no doubt that would have been nominated for everything. Like, it is so frustrating. So the film kind of, without even, and maybe Spike Lee knew this when he was making it, it like doubles down because of its reception and how it's so muted. Even to this day, it is easily my favorite film of the ones I watched for this. And Angela Bassett's part, so she plays Betty Shabazz, and she comes in quite late, I guess, in the movie or midway through. But she has a real powerful presence in it. So she's like, there's a whole talk about, if he meets a woman, they have to be his equal. And she is that equal. And that, just her presence and everything. And she also is the one that makes him question himself further. Like, so she kind of carries the baton to be like, no, like, if you want to improve the world, you still need to question who you're idolizing and what the support structure is in what you're trying to encourage other people basically to also support. It's really, really well judged because she's both the adoring wife and is frightened for herself and her children and for her husband, and also sees the wider picture.
Now tell me, what's the matter with you? Wake up. Are you so committed that you blinded yourself? You so dedicated you can't face the truth? Baines, he's the editor of the newspaper that you established.
And, it's not her story. She doesn't have a lot of time to do all those different things, but she's terrific.
She is really terrific, and a softer Angela, which makes a nice counterpoint to certainly these other films we're speaking about here, where that the kind of the softness which comes through here is maybe not at the forefront, even though I think it's always present in her. I don't really have too much to add. I think it's amazing, though. I think it's worth pointing out that Angela Bassett, in a time where we, as white viewers of cinema or culture or anything, we still have a long way to go in familiarizing ourselves with black stories. And Angela Bassett's filmography, and even the ones we've talked about so far, and other ones we could talk about, offer a real gateway into black stories, and ones that are still really prescient now and important that we reflect on now. Malcolm X is a figure that we all ought to know a lot more about. And this film gives a really, really good and exciting and vibrant look into the life of an incredible figure. But all of these films do offer really interesting insights into Black stories, which I think otherwise are missing so often of the time. So it's just worth flagging that Angela Bassett has made really interesting choices, and choices that are really important to her as a Black woman and as a Black storyteller.
Yeah, and I mean, countless people have said this, but without Angela Bassett, we may not have had like what Viola Davis is doing now and being able to do. I mean, Viola Davis, who is as talented, if not more so, than someone like Meryl Streep, still is fighting for roles or whatever. But that, you know, Angela Bassett and exactly what you've just discussed did a lot of, I don't know, groundbreaking. Like she is groundbreaking. She's just terrific. And there are so many movies we haven't even got to talk about, like Boys in the Hood, Black Panther, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Music of the Heart.
Enough.
No, but Black Nativity, like the list goes on and on. But hopefully we get more. Like there's a part of me that thinks the way that, say, something like Viola Davis openly had said after Fences, I'm not playing a woman wearing an apron anymore. And then she gets to do like Widows with Steve McQueen, and also Ma Rainey, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, where she plays like a big megastar. And I just feel like maybe this will come around and Angela will have another moment and be given the opportunities that maybe she wouldn't have been given back in the 90s. But who knows? We can dream about this after we play our quiz.
That sounds like a plan.
Do you have a prize in mind?
I don't have a prize. I would maybe just like an Angela Bassett plushie for me to cuddle at night.
Oh, it's like a teddy bear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
just seems really creepy.
It's definitely creepy, and also just an interesting contrast to how I view her. I don't know, just seems fun.
Is she like, is a plushie like the same size as Angela Bassett would be in real life? Or
That
like
would
a
be
miniature?
I think that would be too creepy.
Well, that's what I imagined, but now I realise I don't know what a plushie is.
Just a little like toy of her, and say, I don't know, in her in Strange Days.
You're freaking me out. Okay. Her strange story. Well, speaking of Strange Days, you could have had her like drive you around for like a year or something. But that would have been a waste.
Oh, I wouldn't want to make I wouldn't want to make her do that. Driving Miss Daisy shit. That was horrible.
Oh my god, I've fallen into the trap. Well, that's it. That's so interesting. That didn't even occur to me watching Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes. That's a driving Mr. Fiennes is vibe. Oh my lord. Okay. Well, I have some general questions to start off, and then we'll have some audio clips for you to respond to.
Beautiful.
So, first question: what Irish pop star was considered for a part in Strange Days?
95 must have been Sinead O'Connor.
That would have been terrific. No.
Oh, okay. Irish pop star, 95.
I will say they're not a solo artist, but their name is much bigger than anyone else in their band or group. I don't know what you refer to it as.
Shane MacGowan?
No, but again, that would have been so terrific. To be honest, he could have been in it. Like, easily could have been one of those people on the streets.
I think both of these people, like Sinead O'Connor and Shane MacGowan.
Sinead O'Connor would have been terrific. I'm all for Sinead O'Connor being in Strange Days. Anyway, sorry, but it's neither of those
people. A band, a famous Irish. Oh, fucking Bono, probably.
Yeah, it was Bono. He was going to play Philo Grant, which is like Jennifer Lewis's kind of mob boss
Oh,
love
actually, that
interest.
would have been okay. Because he's creepy, so that's fine.
Oh yeah, no, Bono. Because I had read that and I couldn't really remember that part, and then rewatching it, I was like, do you know what? This wouldn't have been the worst thing in the
No,
world.
that would have been all right. I thought you meant maybe as like a lead, and then it'd be like, oh no,
Oh no. Ray Fiennes is. I think Ray Fiennes is pretty good in
it's
Saint
really
Nick.
good. Yeah, he is.
Okay, so who was originally slated to play Tina Turner before Angela was cast in What's Love Got to Do with It?
Oh, how do I not know this?
Yeah, how do you not?
Who could it have been?
Would you like a hint?
It must have been a pop star then. Was it?
I will. Yes, it was a pop star.
Was it Whitney?
Yeah, I would see this star
Yeah.
icon is the word I would use. But we can use star.
Okay. No, I mean, it would have been. I'm not saying it would have been the worst thing ever, but I just can't.
Yeah, Whitney. So Whitney couldn't do it because she was pregnant. So that's why it didn't work out, which is kind of mad. It's mad to think that would have happened. Although I'd happily watch Angela Bassett in The Bodyguard. So if they swapped roles,
well, there we go. But...
Anyway, what part or what real life person has Angela played in 2 separate films?
What real life person has Angela played in 2 separate films? Rosa Parks? No,
that was a TV movie.
That was a TV movie. Okay, both cinema releases.
Sorry, cinema films. Yeah,
2 separate films, not linked to each other, so not like part of a series or anything like that.
No, not. I was going to say not Black Panther. I clearly know that the Marvel people are not real.
Aren't they?
I'll give you a hint. We talked about one of these films.
Betty Shabazz?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did she? What else did she play her in?
So, obviously Malcolm X in 92, and then
Mhm.
Panther in 95.
Oh, I see. Okay, great.
Yeah. This is the last question in this round. What Oscar-winning role did Angela turn down?
Oh, I feel like this is something I've heard before. What Oscar-winning role did she turn down? Monsters Ball. Which one Halle Berry her Oscar?
Yeah, she turned that down. I'm like, no comment. Only that I like. It's not a great movie, and I understand why you would turn it down. It's kind of it's almost like kind of victim porn in a way. That film. It's an I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember reading that a while ago now and thinking, yeah, that made sense to turn that down.
Yeah.
I would say Halle Berry is terrific in it, and I'm sure Angela would have been good too. Terrific. But yeah. So that's the first round. Second round is an audio challenge. So
my favorite.
I have 4 clips of Oscar-nominated performances where people played real-life musicians.
Oscar-nominated performances of actors playing real-life musicians. Okay.
So I want you to listen to each clip and tell me if you know the actor and who they're playing.
Okay. And these, could they also be winning, or is that just giving it away? Oh, nominated or winning? We'll just go with that.
Who knows?
We'll see. Okay, fine. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that my A string has come loose and I'm going to have to restring my cello and start again. Or at least it wasn't my G string.
Oh my goodness. All this talk of G strings. This is where it's going to be really embarrassing that I don't actually know her name. It's Emily Watson as Hilary, Or Jackie.
Well, firstly, the film is called Hillary and Jackie.
So she's Hillary or Jackie.
She's playing Jacqueline Dupre.
Amazing. So 2 points.
Hillary or Jackie. That's the sequel. That's the sequel that hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Oh, well, I'm so sad that Emily snapped her G-string. Okay, sorry. Second clip. Let's go.
Look, Harry, like I've been telling you, what you do is your business. I may be tired, but I ain't dumb.
You're walking across the street, a truck hits you, you're laying in the street, they take you to the nearest hospital. What's the first thing they do? They give you a shot of morphine. Now,
Harry,
morphine.
if I get hit by a truck, I'll call you, okay? Now get out of here.
Oh. The male voice there was more familiar.
I'm going to say focus on the woman.
Oh, man, I don't think I'm going to get this one. Oh, I'm trying to think of where the accent's from. There's a southern lilt to it. Country singer? Maybe a country singer. I'm not getting country singer vibes, though. I'm getting rock star vibes. Female rock star. It's a white actress. No?
No. This is somebody who I am obsessed with, and I feel like I talk a lot about, maybe not on the podcast, but in our, like, just in general. This is a performance. I think we watched this together, like during maybe the first lockdown, and we had wildly different opinions, maybe on the film and her.
Is it really? Is it Diana Ross as Billie Holiday? Is it really? Is not sounding like her to me. That's so weird.
It's because she's acting, dear.
No, but that sounds like. Wow, that's
Billie
really
Holiday.
Really blown me away. No, it doesn't even sound like Billie Holiday. It sounds. That's really thrown me. Okay.
Yeah. So Diana Ross is an Oscar nominee for playing Billie Holiday back in the 70s. Am I right in saying that? 70s, 60s,
70s in.
Oh, The Lady Sings the Blues.
The Lady Sings the Blues.
Oh, what a movie. Again, another movie that's not really available. Gorgeous poster. Oh, anyway.
Gorgeous poster. Yeah, no, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about this film. But I think it's worth your time. It's worth your time. But I found it No, it just I don't know. I would never want to watch it again. But that's not necessarily a measure of it being bad. I just would never want to.
Well, you'll never see Diana Ross attack a mirror with a lipstick ever again in your life.
No,
so
that's very true. So maybe I should.
Okay, well, you've got one so far. So let's go to the next one.
Well, it's quite amusing, Majesty. It's set. The whole thing is set in Yes. Where? In a harem, Majesty.
Oh, I love that film. That's Tom Hulce as Mozart in Amadeus.
True. Correct. What a great movie it is, for sure. Okay, so the last but not least.
Last but not least.
Soon as they get my voice down on one of them recording machines, then it's just like I be some whore and they roll over and put their pants on. They ain't got no use for me then.
Oh. That's Viola Davis as Marini in Marini's Black Bottom.
And she was nominated against somebody else playing Billie Holiday, Andra Day, which is mad. Mad that you have like a handful of like African American people nominated for Best Actress, and two of them play the same character.
Yeah.
But
we love Billie.
Anyway. Okay, so you've won. You've won the prize of a life-size doll of Billie Holiday of Angela Bassett. Do you know what I'm imagining?
Take away.
For anyone,
what are you imagining?
For anyone that's seen The Lost Daughter, I'm imagining you and like Olivia Colman with that doll.
Oh my god! Oh Jesus! Like bathing her.
So you dress her up and you whatever, and I'm so while I'm having hot sex with an Irishman, you're dressing up a doll in your apartment.
Oh my god, that's far too close to home, Michael. That's really... That's so mean of you to have done that.
Also, just talking about mean, just because we shared that Amadeus clip, I'm actually quite nervous that my laugh sounds like his, and I don't want anyone to.
No, every
tweet
time
me
you do
that.
it makes me wince. I jump.
Okay, anyway, well, now we get to an exciting part because in our little Christmas break, we thought to restructure this part of the pod.
You never told me.
So we're going to do it. Yeah, I'm the boss. Listen to me, bitch. If I could be Angela Bassett, I would in this moment. I don't know what I'd say.
Oh my
God. So we basically have 3 categories now. And the first one, actually, which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with prequel.
So we're going to pick one of her existing films and say which one like a sequel of or a prequel of. And what did you go with?
Prequel of. That's much better. I mean, I literally just said sequel, prequel, but I kept thinking sequel. A film we didn't mention here, except very briefly. I'm going for Passion Fish. But
Me too!
Are we gay?
Yeah, are we the same person? No, because it's so rich. So the John Sayles film, yeah, it's such a rich movie. And yeah, sorry, you go on.
Oh, well, no, because I put sequel, but I don't know why I wasn't thinking prequel. I would be more interested in a prequel, though. Thinking about it now, I reckon. In my head, it was... So Passion Fish is about a soap actress who finds herself in an accident, loses the capability of her legs. She has a housewife, that's the wrong word. She has a maid move in to take care of her housewife.
I love it.
Played by the incredible, incomparable Alfred Woodard. And Angela Bassett is basically kind of a scene stealer in... well, not a scene stealer. Oh god, there's so much going on. But she's wonderful.
A scene stealer,
She is, but there's other people in that scene who are also scene stealers. But yeah, she turns up and her and Alfred have this really interesting conversation about their pasts in the kitchen. So it would be nice to sort of think about them regrouping. And I imagined Mary McDonnell, who's the lead in this, as the soap actress, returning to the soap world. But now I'm thinking, no, I want to know about Angela's past, which she starts to describe in that. That's getting quite niche, though, and maybe moving away, but her moving up towards from Chicago into the soap world and her finding her success is probably more interesting, but I wouldn't be opposed to either. But maybe you have a different spin.
No, they're good. What I was thinking is, Angela's still doing well in the soap world, but is stuck with like kind of the same shitty part. And Alfred Woodard, for some reason, needs to go to the city, and it's about her being with Angela Bassett and somehow like their friendship and what happens there. Mary McDonnell, I'll never not give her a part. She can do something, but and definitely, well, actually, he's going to be a totally different age now. What's his name? The hottie from that film, who's not a hottie anymore because it's like 30 years ago.
David Strathairn.
Yeah. So him and Mary can be happy together. He's a hottie back in 92.
Oh no, sure, he's a hottie now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, so yeah, not very different, but I would love Passion Fish is a really beautiful film, and John Sayles, who directed it, I think he was just really lovely. So I'd love to see him revisit if he's still with us. I don't know anything about John Sayles now. So sorry, John. If you're dead or if you're listening, either way, I'm sorry. But he's great, or was great. So yeah.
Is great.
He's great. He's alive. He's well. He's a listener. Hey, John. So our second category is like pairing Angela with a genre or a filmmaker or a franchise. And will I go? Do you want to go first on this one, or will I'll go first because you went first last time.
You go first.
So one of my favorite performances of Angela Bassett's is actually from TV, is the Thanksgiving episode in Master of None, as you've described. It's basically an episode which goes from, Lena Waithe's character as a child until her like contemporary self, and through that she comes out and is openly gay with her mother, who is conservative and concerned, and all the, like quite a layered reaction to her daughter not conforming the way that she would expect.
It is hard enough being a black woman in this world. Now you want to add something else to that.
It's not like this was my choice. It's just who I am.
And it also allows Angela to play an imperfect sort of person. She actually is having to learn. And there's this beautiful moment toward the end of the episode where she accepts her daughter. And Lena Waithe wrote this episode, or co-wrote it with Aziz Ansari. She's the first African-American woman to win the Emmy for writing. I don't know if it's writing for comedy, drama, but it's screenwriting that way. But I would love to see Lena Waithe, who's also, she was a screenwriter on Queen and Slim, the movie. I'd love her to, be the director and tell a story, whatever she wants, and have Angela Bassett be part of that. I just think she understands what Angela can do, and she's a beautiful writer. So I'd put all my chips in that basket.
That's great. That's such a good one, actually. I would never have thought of Lena Waithe, and she is so good. And I'd forgotten about the Queen and Slim connection. So more in general from her in terms of screenwriting would be most appreciated for sure. I went more mainstream, but no less exciting. Jordan Peele, who is obviously an incredibly exciting filmmaker with Get Out and Us being two of the most brilliant horror films to come out of the past decade. I'm thinking still horror thriller type, and I think naturally if you're thinking of Angela Bassett and a Jordan Peele, you might start to think the antagonist or villain or whatever. No, she in this is the protagonist. She's going to be a no prisoners antagonist though, where there'll be something supernatural going on, I'm sure, because that seems to be the gist, or certainly of Us, I guess, less so of Get Out. But, I mean, he's so sophisticated. I don't want to even try and come up with something because Jordan Peele is way too inventive a filmmaker for me to try and conjure up a crap idea for him to do. But something where she is a kick-ass, exciting protagonist who will not be beaten by the forces, whatever they may be at play in his film. But I just think they'd be wonderful together. I don't see it being an unlikely thing. He writes and directs. So far, they've been heavily black-centered stories. I think Angela Bassett is still considered, black acting royalty, and I can't see why she wouldn't be considered. So I don't think, actually, it's that unlikely of a suggestion. So Mon Angela, maybe her as the lead is less likely, but I hope that he is as intelligent and exciting a filmmaker as he has shown so far, and would cast a mid-60s female black lead in his next film.
Oh, I'd hope so, yeah. No, that's a brilliant pairing. And then our last category is a remake of a film that we already know, but starring or with Angela Bassett. And what did you come up with for that?
So I have gone down the route of thinking, I guess, James Cameron again. I've thought Terminator, but very specifically for me, she would have to do them all. She's Sarah Connor in Terminator, but Terminator 2 for my money is the one that excites me the most. I think Terminator 2 is one of the most thrilling action films ever made. I love it. I love the character of Sarah Connor. I love her aesthetic. I love what she's doing. But if you see Angela Bassett in Strange Days and her physical heft, she could kick anyone into the fiery pits of hell, no problem. And I think T2 probably was a similar year, if not the same time, perhaps very around that time anyway. So Angela Bassett at that time playing Sarah Connor in the Terminator franchise, but specifically for my enjoyment, Terminator 2.
That would be amazing. So I've gone down a very different route, I realise.
Perfect.
So a movie that I love, but I definitely think could be redone and be like a great movie.
Don't you dare say Paddington 2.
No, that's my favourite. I'd never diss any Paddington-related things. No, it's Death Becomes Her. And so Angela Bassett is ageless. So Death Becomes Her, for those who do not know, is a film that exists with Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn, who are these women movie stars that are aging, and they take potion, which kind of makes them immortal and young forever, but also they're immortal and they have to keep updating their body and whatnot. And Bruce Willis is kind of stuck in between them, in kind of also a love triangle. I would update that, starring Angela Bassett in whichever role she'd like, directed by Pedro Almodovar, making his English language debut. Imagine the colours.
Yes.
And I was trying to think of who you'd put in there. I'd love someone like, say, Sigourney Weaver, who also is a very powerful woman, or is boxed into those sorts of roles. I'm also up for Goldie Hawn coming back. I'm not up for Meryl Streep.
But in the context of this, I can forgive it.
No, imagine seeing Sigourney Weaver and Angela Bassett go wild and campy and fun, and Pedro Almodovar would draw out like real kind of themes about aging and also about purpose and existentialist questions, as opposed to what Robert Zemeckis does, is like just shoot a hole through Goldie Hawn, please. Like, I don't think there's much depth to Death Becomes Her as much as I love it.
What about Joan Cusack?
She could play oh my god, she'd be terrific in the Bruce Willis part of like, and it's not their love interest, or it could be a love interest, but it's more like a Thelma Ritter in those old Hollywood movies, of someone that's kind of doted on there, but also kind of a feisty kind of psychic. Yeah, I could see Joan in there for sure. I mean, if it was up to me, we'd be having lots of, all my faves would come and have, who would play the, Dakota Johnson could play the Isabella Rossellini sexy witch woman that like gives them a potion.
Yeah.
There's so many people, there's so many things you could do with that. But yeah, I'd love her to be in that sort of showcase, fun, entertaining film.
Sure. Wow. J'adore. What a selection. What a board of delights for you to pick from. I would love to see any, and specifically all of these.
But terrific. As always, what a pleasure to chat about someone great with you.
Yeah, and right back at you. I think we maybe sort of covered it. If you were to recommend an Angela Bassett film to listeners, is there a certain direction you would push them?
Music of the Heart. If I need to say it again, I am joking. Malcolm X. There's a lot of them I would, but Malcolm X, What's Love Got to Do with It? Strange Days, Passion Fish. I think they're and also we didn't get to talk about Boys in the Hood.
Yes.
So there's quite a lot of movies. And also Black Panther. As a not a Marvel person, I love Black Panther.
No, exactly. And just to echo kind of what I said earlier, there's a lot of rich stories you can get from any of these. And yeah, we didn't talk about Boys in the Hood. It was my first time watching it. I'm so glad I've come to that as well. Again, still such, at the time, would have been incredibly fresh. It still feels very fresh today. So add that to the pile and go and watch any and all of these films. Angela unlocks a world of really fantastic filmmaking and storytelling. So please do go and check them all out. But otherwise, that's us wrapped up on another icon so dear to our hearts. If people have any suggestions or want to reach out to us for any other reasons except to slate us, which why would you ever? Where could they find us, Michael?
So you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at don't know her _pod. And if you want to drop us an email, you can go at don'tknowherpod@gmail.com. And please do rate or review us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also do that on Spotify now, and you can rate the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, we just want to hear from you, and it helps people find us. And yeah, if there's anyone new, we ask this all the time, but if there's one person you think would enjoy this, do share it on, and we'd be really grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that covers it. Angela, what a treat. It's been delightful to talk, Angela, with you. Michael, I hope you have a wonderful day, and to you all listening, the same. Goodbye.